What's going down, guys? Jerry Neutron here, back with a brand new video, and today we're taking a look at this card from ASUS. This is the Strix RX 580. Now, if you guys don't know, AMD has basically improved their manufacturing process for their Polaris GPUs. And because of that, we get a new line of 500 series graphics cards. Now, in comparison to the 480, you'll still get the same amount of stream processors at 2304. Still 8 gigabytes of VRAM on a 256-bit bus, but the clock speeds again have been bumped. This particular model is a factory overclocked card, so it's going to run at 1360 for the boost clock out of the box and 2000 megahertz on the memory clock, or 1380 if you were running the card in overclock mode, which I was not during this review. So you see a slight bump in performance in comparison to the 400 series graphics cards, but not really anything to go crazy about. The big thing here is that these are going to be priced the same as a 400 series card, so it's basically just free performance for you guys out there that haven't actually bought a graphics card lately. So if you're coming from like a 300 or 200 series mid-range card, what I will say is that taking a look at this card, first off, I can say it is, number one, it's massive. And number two, the cooler is completely overkill. I mean, this is a beefy card. It's a 2.5-inch slot card. It's got three 90mm fans on the top there. Huge, I guess you could call this like a dual tower heatsink. I mean, it's not really a tower, but there are two separate beefy heat sinks there with the nickel-plated heat pipes going in between there. You've got a VRM cooling plate here. It's just beefy, man. There's no way an RX 580 needs this kind of cooling, but you can also see on the side of the card, it does have two 4-pin fan headers here. So if you wanted to connect some system fans to the graphics card and have the GPU kind of control ramping up or down in the system fans, then you can do that as well. There's also a single 8-pin PCIe connector on the card there for your power delivery. This particular card has a 7+1 phase power design. It's also got a 0 dB fan mode, which means below a certain temp, the fans don't actually spin. Now, for all you RGB freaks out there, I know you'll be happy to hear there is plenty of RGB lighting on this card. Does it have it surrounding the three fans there? It's also on the side with the Republic of Gamers kind of writing there. And also, if you flip it over and you take a look at the back plate, you can see the ROG logo is there as well, and that will light up. From my experience, the color on the ROG logo here on the top is always slightly different than the LEDs that you see on the rest of the card. And it was like that on the 1070 as well, which kind of bothered me. By the way, the lighting can be controlled with the ASUS Aura software. So if you've got like a motherboard or something like that that you want to sync with the graphics card, they can do that, which looks pretty cool. Again, if you're into the RGB lighting stuff, I know not everybody is. As for the I/O side here, we've got one DVI-D, two HDMI 2.0, so it looks like we've got an extra one there just in case you want to do VR or something like that, and then two DisplayPort 1.4. By the way, this card is 11.73 inches long, or 29.8 centimeters for you non-US folks, so you do want to make sure you have enough length in your case if this is a card that you are going to run. It's definitely not a small card. As for noise, again, this card is not loud at all. Even under load, it's not too bad. So let me just give you guys a little sample of how the card sounds at idle and then under load. Now, I'm not sure if you guys could hear that, but it sounds like I'm getting a hint of coil whine when the card is under load. You may not be able to hear it with the case on. It's not a huge deal, but with the case off, with the side panel off, I definitely did notice it, and was a little bit annoying. But once I started actually playing games and I had my volume on and stuff like that, I couldn't hear it. But gotta mention it, so yeah, I would like to see that go away. Now, as far as temps go, I saw about 36C idle with this card and about 72C load, and that's after a 30-minute game of Conquest in Battlefield 1. So yeah, not too bad there. It's definitely a night and day improvements over my tiny RX 470 that I have there, which you guys can see the massive difference in the cooler. So Not really surprising, but yeah. Now, as far as the benchmarks go, I do have a mixture of canned benchmarks and some actual in-game benchmarks. I was running this with the driver version 17.5.2. All of the benchmarks were run at 1080p, and as far as the test system goes, it's running a 4790K with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and then of course this RX 580 in the gaming mode. So the boost clock was at 1360 and the memory clock at 2000 megahertz. So with that said, let's go ahead and roll the benchmarks. All right, now as you can see here in 1080p Ultra Gaming, the 580 definitely held its own. I think it is the perfect card for gaming at that resolution. Now, if you want like 1080p, 144 hertz, or you're doing 1440p, I'd recommend jumping up to the 1070. But for anything below that, I would probably grab a 580. Now again, this model is the factory overclocked one, so it is gonna come in at a little bit of a premium. I would say if you are capable of overclocking, maybe stick with the non-factory overclocked version of this card and save yourself a little bit of money. But other than that, the Strix model, regardless of the variant, is definitely worth the buy. So let me know what you guys think about this card down below. I am gonna save the benchmarks for another video. I'm gonna be putting this into a Ryzen build, which we will go ahead and definitely overclock then. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss that. Go ahead and like the video if you like this type of content, and I'm out of here, guys. Until next time, see ya.